Welcome back, and in this video we're going to be looking at for loops, which is another control flow statement which allows us to repeat a bit of code a set number of times. And so the way we do this is by simply specifying for, and then we can actually have a counter which keeps count of the number of times we've repeated it. And so we set this up by defining it as an int in the for loop. And so we have int, and then I'm going to call it count, and then I'm going to set that equal to 0. And then what we actually do is we're going to have three parameters in this. So we separate them by a semicolon. And now what comes next is the Boolean condition, similar to the while and do while loops and the if statements that we've been using. So the Boolean condition I'm going to use is I want count to be less than, say, 10. And then what we do next is we just set how count is going to change. So for now, I'm going to say count plus plus. And what that will mean is count will increase by 1. And then what we simply do is we put the curly braces in like we've had in the last videos when we looked at while, do whiles, and if statements. And what that will do is just specify the bit of code that we want to be repeated. So for now, I'm just going to get it to print out the value of count. And then we can see how that changes. And so if we go ahead and run that, then what you can see is we started off with count being 0. And as you can see, it then prints out 0. But then what we do is we get 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9 being printed out. And that's because we have count plus plus over here, which increments it after every iteration. And then this keeps on going whilst count is less than 10. And so here we get to 9, and 9 is less than 10. But then it increments count at the end of the loop, and 9 plus 1 becomes 10. And then 10 is no longer less than 10 because it's equal to 10. And so the loop then terminates. And so if I actually add in a bit of code here, and what I'm going to write is loop end. And so if we were to run that again, we can actually see it comes to the end of the loop. And so our for loops are actually quite nice in that they let us iterate a bit of code as many times as we want. And we're also flexible to increase the value of count by whatever we want. And so we can use the notation we used in the last video and set, say, 2 or 3 or whatever we want. And so what this will do is increment the value of count by 2 every time. And so if we were to run that, then we would start off with 0 and go from 2, 4, 6, and 8. However, we're also not restricted by the value where we start at, and we could easily start count at, say, 5 if we wanted to. And then what that would do is just simply print out 5, 7, 9. Similarly, we can also use a different operator here and could even change it to minus if you wanted it to decrease. And then what we could do is then set this to be greater than 10, and we could start off from, say, 40. And what this will do is let us count down. And so as you can see here, we have 40 all the way to 12, and then the loop ends. And so that's an overview of for loops in Java. And I'll definitely recommend getting practice where you can, as they'll be very useful when you're coding in the future. I'll also attach the code for this video posted in the Git repository link in the description below, as well as a few more examples of using for loops. I hope you've enjoyed the content for this video, and if you have, please do like, share, and subscribe.